D. Mace Fingan and Donick 102.5, The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Derek Mason will be here at some point. He's stuck in traffic.
He's coming in hot, he says.
He knows the show starts at 3.
I will say this, with our new time zone change, not really a zone change,
time slot change.
It just sounded fancy to say time zone. It does take a little longer on our commute out here than it did when you were coming in at 10:30.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
we do have to compensate. We have to change our habits here.
That's fair.
Like I left way earlier than I normally do.
Oh, there he is.
It's hot. T-Mace, you feel the heat coming in?
He came in hot. Oh, man.
T-Mace is
It was
coming in
burning.
hot. He left a vapor trail.
There's
through the door.
literally like fire tracks in here right now. I see some fire coming out.
Derek, didn't you learn that to be early is to be on time? Isn't that the old saying?
Oh, no, that's Nick Saban. Nick Saban taught him that.
Yeah,
If you're not early,
you're late. That's how it is.
that's how it is.
So there's a fine, right, for being late?
No, because the minute y'all talked and he threw it to me, I was in the seat.
You know
I've
what?
been there.
Fair.
When he
Been there.
threw it to me, I was ready and prepared.
I
Bam, in the
introduced
seat.
you, and
I
you
was
weren't
ready.
here.
No, when you threw it to me, bam. Was I here?
He was here.
I was here when he threw it to me. Bam, there you go.
You know
We
what? That's
juggled
fair.
just a little bit. It was right on the border.
It was borderline.
This is
I'll
what I
give you
think we
that.
need to do with the new time slot, and we're still getting the new traffic patterns. There needs to be a kangaroo court,
Okay.
and I feel like I am really the favorite. I'm the guy that usually is pushing it to the envelope. But I think there could be a fine, and
Yeah.
I don't know,
25 cents.
sodas or drinks
Yeah.
around a round of drinks,
Exactly.
I
Gatorades,
think that's
whatever,
fair. Yeah, yeah.
whatever beverage you
Yellow
like.
Gatorade.
Yes.
Yeah, for the people, the person that's late's got to
It's
buy
late,
the rest of
okay.
it.
I like
Maybe
that.
that will motivate us
I
to
like that.
leave a little bit earlier.
I like that. But I mean, listen, when there should be some things that are illegal to do during like work times. And one of those things is you shouldn't try to haul a double wide trailer during rush hour traffic because you're holding everybody up. And that's what happens on Thompson Lane right there, or Murfreesboro Pike, excuse me. It's called Murfreesboro Pike. There was a double wide trailer that was holding up all the traffic, and no one wanted to go around it. That was my problem. Like, why doesn't anybody want to go around this double wide truck? Nobody wanted to. Hence, traffic jam. But once you got past the double wide truck, you know what happened? Clear sailing.
Yep.
But it took me a minute to get past the double wide truck. So there you go.
I was going to suggest wind sprints in the parking lot.
I mean, yeah, we could if you want to. You know.
We'd have to video that.
Exactly. We can't do it while it's raining, though, because it's a little slick out there.
Nevertheless,
Yes.
a bit of Titans breaking news. According to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, the Titans plan to claim linebacker Brian Asamoa off waivers per sources. The Vikings' former third-round pick was released Tuesday, now gets a fresh start in Tennessee, which is first in the claim order. So let's learn a little something about Brian Asamoa. As Jeremy Fowler said, he was a third-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings in 2022 out of Oklahoma. He played in 17 games last season for the Vikings, 0 starts, 0 sacks in his career. He had 6 combined tackles last season. So a depth piece for the Tennessee Titans. But the Tennessee Titans pick up linebacker Brian Asamoa off waivers from the Minnesota Vikings.
What I'm trying to find is he an inside linebacker or outside? His stats. He's clearly a backup that they think highly of. If he's a third round pick, and he has played in a lot of games, is he a special teams guy? I'm not sure what they view his role as, but that's 2 Vikings they've gotten, and the Vikings are a team that was pretty good last year. I'm sure they've got numbers issues, and this is what the whole system is designed to do. When you're on the bottom and you got that first waiver claim, you've got to use it. And so hopefully they've gotten a little bit better on the margins with some of these guys they're picking up.
The Vikings say Asamoah played 23 defensive snaps and 6 special team snaps this past weekend in Minnesota's preseason opener against the Houston Texans. Of course, a third-round pick in 2022, totaled 188 defensive and 802 special team snaps over the course of 46 games. He totaled 30 tackles, including special teams, forced 2 fumbles, and recovered 1.
Well, again, like Willie said, he's the depth piece. He's not a guy that is going to drastically change, their defense in any way. You hope that he can come in and provide some really good play, but judging by, his short but past history, he's a depth guy that is going to be used a lot on special teams. And if he shows that, he can get to the passer or whatever it is they want him to do from a defensive standpoint, then he's going to play more. But yeah, this is the situation where it's good to have the first pick when it comes to guys being cut or released, because you can kind of sift through them. And if you need them, you can get them and try to sign them to a contract. If not, then you can move on. But I wouldn't be surprised if, come the end of camp, that there's another 2 or 3 people, and this guy that they signed may end up getting released depending on what happens during the preseason game. So nothing is set in stone. So it's like a revolving door right now. They're trying to create competition, and they're trying to make the team better.
So welcome Brian Asamoa to the Tennessee Titans. Speaking of those Tennessee Titans, they have wrapped up joint practices with the Atlanta Falcons. Today was day 2. I heard Teron Davenport on with Chase and Big Joe. He said practice today was better for the Tennessee Titans, although, let's be honest, the bar was pretty low considering how dreadful practice went yesterday based on various reports. Nick Suss of the Tennessean has some practice observations. He writes, quote, "The first team defense stepped things up a little bit for practice number 2. The day began with a brutal red zone 7-on-7 period where the Falcons scored 3 touchdowns in 5 plays and drew 2 Titans coverage penalties along the way. But the day steadied from there, with the full defense keeping the Atlanta playmakers out of the end zone for 6 plays from the red zone and pressuring Michael Penix play after play in full field periods. This included a stretch where Arden Key recorded a sack or quarterback hurry on 4 consecutive plays, 2 of which came on simulated 3rd and long or 4th and medium situations. In the full team 2-minute drill period, the Titans gave up a couple of completions but didn't allow the Falcons to score." More from Suss. Quote, "Rookie quarterback Cam Ward's last throw was a disappointing repeat of a mistake he made in the preseason opener. Ward tried to throw the ball away under pressure and had plenty of time to get the ball out of bounds, but he didn't put enough air under the ball and left the ball in play, floating an easy interception way of cornerback D. Alford. He got away with that error in his preseason debut with the ball falling safely on the turf, but this time was a lesson. Ward and the offense had an overall okay day, with Ward making some nice throws for scores in red zone drills, but the offense mostly consisting of short throws otherwise. Even Ward's red zone touchdowns often came on plays where he threw short of the goal line and targets carried the ball in." So yesterday, we discussed a lot of the sound bites coming out of Titans-Falcons practice, and that included Jeffrey Simmons and Jarvis Brownlee and other Titans players talking about the slow or sluggish start to day 1 of practice. Brian Callahan addressed reporters before practice today, and Gentry Estes of the Tennessean asked Callahan if he is getting what he wants out of this extended preseason road trip and whether it contributed to the sluggishness at Tuesday's practice. Here is what Brian Callahan had to say.
Getting what you wanted out of this extended road trip, and do you think that it all contributed to yesterday's practice, guys? Just great to be here.
No, I think we're getting everything that I want out of this road trip, and I think that's part of it. There's a little bit of the adversity factor that you're trying to get comfortable with, and you're trying to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And there's going to be times in the season where you're going to look back and the feeling's going to feel familiar. And that's the idea, is to make it challenging and make it hard. Not being in our normal surroundings, not being in our own beds, all of those things is part of the process of it. And I think that part's been great. There's been some things that we got to clean up from an execution standpoint in practice. I don't necessarily attribute the practice to that, but yeah, our guys tired? Yeah, of course. And that's the idea. It's training camp. It's supposed to be hard. And I think that that's the idea of the whole trip, is that's a key component of it, is we're going to go through some hard stuff. And so that's what we're doing it now. And then you have a chance to draw upon some of these experiences as you go through hard things during the season, because inevitably every season, no matter how good your football team is, you go through challenges and you're going to go through hardships and you're going to have things that you have to overcome. And the more you can put yourself in those positions, the better off I think you're going to be in the long run. So it's all a part of the process to me when it comes to being on the road and feeling like it's not, everything's not, hunky-dory and we're all having a good time. Like, it's supposed to be hard.
That was Brian Callahan this morning before practice. And gentlemen, I highlight the phrase comfortable being uncomfortable. The question I have for the two of you and all of you at 615-737-1025 is, will it pay off? Willie, what do you think of Brian Callahan's goal of making the Titans comfortable being uncomfortable, starting with this 9-night preseason road trip, which, according to Teresa Walker of the Associated Press, is the team's longest preseason road trip since moving to Tennessee?
I think, this is in the context of a team that is lacking talent, right? They don't have the horses. They're not a veteran team that you know what you're getting. You're trying to build a culture. You're trying to build an identity. You're looking for young players to rise up. And so, therefore, I like the idea that he's making it tough on them. He wants to make it tough on them every day. And therefore, he's willing to have some practices that look ugly. This is my interpretation of what he's saying. D-Mace and I talked about this while you were on vacation, Adam, when Cam Ward was having some very rough-looking practices. But if you look a little closer, both Jeremy Fowler and now Albert Breer have gotten this from Brian Callahan, that they're purposely making it hard on Cam Ward. They're trying to make it tougher than it's going to be in the games. And I hope that that's a little bit what he's talking about, comfortable being uncomfortable. He's trying to push them. And because of that, D-Mace, I can think back to some experiences. For me, it would be when I was a freshman at Vanderbilt basketball and we were going through the preseason practice. I really had never practiced at that intensity and that speed and that level. And it took a while. And there were some days where my body wasn't feeling real good and my mind was not in a great place confidence-wise. But eventually you get better. To me, that's what the preseason is for. I don't know that this is going to mean, hey, they're going to come through and be a great team. But I definitely understand this stage of training camp can be tough on a day-to-day. And I think it's purposely tough.
Yeah, it's all strategic when you start camp and what you want to put your players through, especially a team like the Titans that have a bunch of new faces, some young faces, a second-year coach. He saw things that he did last year that he wanted to change this year. And I think one of them was, and it was evident, he wants this team to be a closer team. He wants this to be a family feel. And he talked about, going, when you leave, it's just y'all, you and the team. And, there's a bond that is built when y'all are together in, 100-degree heat and your body, because everybody now, we're all on the same plane here. And typically what happens is you start to revolt a little bit against the coach. The coach don't mind. He does it. He's trying to create friction and so y'all can work it out, because that's what happens in a game. There's friction created in games, whether you may, have a sudden turnover and now your defense has to run out there and you got to trust the guys that are running on the field with you. The only way you build that trust is through what they're doing now. All of this, again, people laughed at this, stuff like this, whether what Brian was doing during the offseason, they laughed at it. But until you're a head coach and you're in that position, you don't know what it's going to take to get your team together. Whatever he tried last year obviously didn't work. So now he's trying a new method. Hopefully it works. It seemed like guys are responding to it in their own ways. But when a coach does something like this, they're doing it for a reason. They want to create an environment that you just can't sit back and be comfortable in. And that's the responsibility of the head coach. He's right. I got to make these guys feel uncomfortable in a comfortable position, because when it's the fourth quarter and we're down 8 points and we just scored a touchdown and we need to score that 2 point, or we need to stop them, I got to know that y'all are built for this. I got to know this is an uncomfortable position we're in, but damn it, we're going to get it done. Last year, they were in so many uncomfortable positions. Ask the defense. They'll tell you, look at the Detroit game. They were in an uncomfortable position the minute that game started, and they folded. The defense folded. They couldn't hold up. So what you're trying to do now is create some of those situations, so you then can see how your team reacts. Because you can only know how your team reacts is if you put them in that situation. That's the only way you're going to know if they're going to, persevere through it or not. And he's trying to put them in as many uncomfortable positions as he possibly can. And he's doing the right thing.
What are some examples of that from your career?
My career was consistent days in practice. Like when John Harbaugh got there, it was like he ran us in the dirt. Now, granted, love Belichick. Not Belichick, Billick. Love Billick. He was a Super Bowl winning coach. When I got there, he's a player's coach. You could sit down in his office with him and talk for hours if you wanted to. But that last couple of years, things got laxed, So John had to come in, and John had to stake his claim. This is my team. So the practices that we had, man, they were grueling. And guys were getting little nicks here and there, but yet still he was pushing us through. He didn't let up. You know what he was setting up? What if one of those guys go down in a game? Are you going to be ready for it? Because I'm not stopping practice because this guy went down. I'm going to keep practice going. I understand he'll get healthy. We're not worried about that. But I can't, if that comes up in a game and you haven't been through it, I can't expect you to persevere. I can't expect you to go through it and be successful. Why? Because I've never put you in that position. Well, John put us in those positions when he first became coach, and we made it to the AFC Championship because of the things that he put us through at the beginning of the season.
I think too, we have to remember that because of their talent level, there are going to be practices, even when they're feeling great and not sluggish, where they're going to be outplayed, at least to some degree. I don't think we should be. You mentioned this yesterday. You kind of asked, should we be surprised that they haven't done particularly well in these practices? They are coming off being, the last place team in the league with a rookie quarterback and not a roster that looks like it's patched up with all kinds of improvements, right? They've got a lot of young players they're trying to give a chance to. So they're going to be some tough days. And on top of that, I think he's trying to push them physically and try to build, a foundation that's going to pay dividends as they go through the tough times here. And supposedly it did get better today, right? I think we said at the end of the show yesterday, we wanted to see a response to what I think even the players were saying wasn't a great practice. And I think they felt better about it today. Not that it was perfect, but it was better.
It doesn't no practice is ever perfect. It's not, unless the coach set it up for you to complete every pass
right.
and score a touchdown on every play you run in practice. Even when you're in a seasoned scout team, it's still not perfect. So every practice isn't perfect. But what you try to do is, when you come out on a day that you're sluggish or just doesn't seem like the team has it, you're not so much worried about that day because you're in it. It's, how is my team going to show up tomorrow? That's going to be the sign for me, how my team shows up tomorrow. I don't care how soft their damn beds is. I don't care how soft their rags are that they wash up with. I don't care if they got air conditioner in their hotel. I don't care if their television in a hotel has 1 million channels and they're bringing them grapes every hour on the hour. When your body is tired, damn it, your body is tired.
615-737-1025. By the way, when it comes to handling adversity, you know what they say? Without ash to rise from, the phoenix would just be a bird getting up. 615-737-1025. Derek touched on something there that I want to touch on next, because there is something that I have read and heard from multiple people affiliated with this station that I want Derek to address. And we will do that next. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Brian Callahan's goal is to make the Titans comfortable being uncomfortable. Will it pay off? You let us know. 615-737-1025. Later today on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, the Nashville Sounds take on Durham. First pitch is at 5:35, I should say. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure.
Derek Mason here. And if you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike gear is worth to you, so they will help you get it all repaired or better yet replaced. Law Tigers is the resource the motorcycle community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support an event or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. That's Law Tigers, which is powered by Freeman and Fuson. And you can find them in Nashville at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
This week's Nashville's best deal is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Join Fat Bottom this Saturday for their Lucky 13 anniversary party at 844th Avenue North in Nashville. It's a full day of casino-themed fun, live tattoos from Black 13, face painting, a balloon art game, and of course, ice-cold beer. Get a $100 gift card half off while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. Plus, don't miss their Lucky 13 anniversary party this Saturday at Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, talking about Brian Callahan's goal of wanting the Titans to be comfortable being uncomfortable and whether it will pay off. And I want Derek to address something I have read and heard from multiple people affiliated with this station. I heard Chase and Big Joe discussing it earlier today. Paul Kaharski tweeted about it, and I am going to quote Kaharski's tweet here. Quote, Titans road trip exhaustion storyline is way overrated. Exhausted from staying at luxury hotel / winery? Oh, the misery. Play better today. End quote. Now, this is a popular criticism when a team struggles and complains about their road trip or something along those lines, because they're flying charter jets. They are staying in the finest hotels in every city they play in. They are catered to and pampered every step of the way. How can they possibly be exhausted? They're not flying coach. They're not staying at a Holiday Inn Express. So they have no excuse to be tired. I want to talk to the former All-Pro receiver, Derek. This is your opportunity to respond.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to be frank. You haven't been through it, so you don't know what it's like. I can leave it at that. Any one of them that put it, you haven't been through it, you don't know what it's like. You can watch it from afar. Somebody can tell you. But until you experience, you don't have a damn clue of what it's about. Just like I don't have a clue what it's about when you're doing your job and, you know, it may be tough. I can't tell you that, oh, just get over it. You got this, you got that. I can't say that. Why? Because I'm not in your position. I don't know how you feel. I don't know how you feel emotionally. I don't know how you feel physically. So I know what it is. It's like, oh, they are the pampered athletes. So,
first world problems.
Yeah, first, and I get it. I understand it. But the last I checked, I don't care if you're staying in a 5-star hotel or not. If your body's tired and beat up, it's tired and beat up. Okay? And last time I checked, just because you have what people think first class seats, I want to tell people, every seat on the plane, they fly the same planes that y'all get on every day. They fly on those type of planes where there is a section for first class individuals. And usually those people that are in those seats are either the coaches or some veteran players. But everybody else got to ride in the same seat y'all ride in. So don't think that, oh, it's not basketball where the plane is made for 6-7 guys. So everybody gets to stretch out. There's only 15 of them. So they got a bunch of room. It's not like that. The same small little seats you sit in on a regular day when you're flying, it's the same seats they're sitting in. So how different is that? The same hotel, it may be a little bit nicer, but a bed is a bed to them when their body's hurt. Guys will sleep on the floor when they're tired. I've seen many of them do it in the locker room. So they don't have plush things in the locker room. I was in Westminster, Baltimore at the college. Nice college, but their locker room was horrible. And their hotel that was there was a 1-star hotel. 1 star. We stayed there. Our bodies were tired. We had to get up the next morning and do it over and over and over again. And sometimes, just sometimes, our bodies got to a point where it's like, damn, I'm trying to push it, but I can't. I'm just tired. Y'all try running for 2 hours in the heat with pads on. I know they get paid well. I get it. It's all relative. I get they get paid well, but that doesn't that doesn't eliminate how their body feels just because they got money. That money ain't doing nothing for them out there on the field. Their muscles don't know that they got $1 million in the bank. They don't care. Their muscles are telling them, I'm tired, sit your butt down. But they got to push through. And it's taxing on them. I'm not giving them an excuse. I'm just telling you the facts.
I think that's
no excuse whatsoever.
I think that's the point that I would like to emphasize is Brian Callahan and the players are more or less just they're answering the questions.
Exactly.
Right? They had a bad practice and they're trying to reason and talk about it. But the process of training camp is designed to push you to where you are. If you're not a little bit fatigued, a little sore, you're probably not going very hard, right? The practices aren't very intense. If the practices are as intense as they would like to have you believe, right? And that's what Brian Callahan is saying. We want you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm going to push you. I'm going to put you in adverse situations. He's definitely had that mindset with Cam Ward. Look at what Albert Breer wrote about the design of the practices to try to put him in a tough position. So that's the thing. But there's a difference in just stating the nature of training camp, which is what D-Mace is doing, and making excuses for the team, right? That's what I'm sure we'll have a text on the text line. And go ahead and say it. 615-737-1025. Willie, you're just making excuses for the team.
Oh, they're already on there.
Right.
Don't worry.
No, I knew it. I didn't even look. But that is not an excuse. As D-Mace is saying, that is the reality of training camp. They're not a great football team. They're not a super talented football team. They're getting beat because A, they're going through the process, and B, they're not very talented. But they're not. The last thing they're going to do is make an excuse. I'll give you another example of the first world problems, right? When an NHL hockey team, and all 32 teams do this, the Predators are no different than any other team. So this is not to make an excuse for any particular team. But when you have a back-to-back game and you fly and you get on a plane and you've just, gone at it in a major league game for 60 minutes, you recover, you eat, you get on the plane, you got to fly to the next city, and you got to play the next night, and the team you play hasn't played for a couple of days, you're at a disadvantage. But the last thing anybody is ever going to say is, hey, we traveled last night. I mean, they don't like to use that because they know people are going to say, you're just making excuses. But that is reality. It is tough to be that team. And the Titans did travel from their preseason game. And as you mentioned yesterday, the Falcons were home, and there's probably a little bit of built-in advantage for that first practice.
What I've come to understand, this is why I should have just left it as, if you've never been, you don't know what it is, what it's like. So I'm just going to leave it as that. But here's what I really understand. Nobody cares. They don't care. The fans don't care. They know. They will tell you how tough these guys is, and I couldn't do their job, and grueling and all this stuff. But then when you ask a question on why was your team so sluggish, or why was the guy seem to be so sluggish, and they tell you like, hey, listen, this is what has happened. We want to come out better tomorrow. It's not an excuse. It's facts. Don't excuse facts with an excuse, okay? Don't excuse that. Facts are facts. It's not an excuse. If it's happening or it happened, it's the fact that it's a fact. I'm not trying to make an excuse for what the Titans did or how they played or how they practiced the other day. What I like, again, and we talked about in the first segment, this practice was much better than yesterday's practice. That tells me they were just tired, man.
I do not recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Willie and Derek, or texters, I do not recall any member of the Titans specifically stating unprompted, keyword, unprompted, that the low energy in practice was because of the long road trip. The clip we played from Brian Callahan a little bit ago, Gentry Estes of the Tennessean asked Brian Callahan, are you getting what you want out of this long road trip? And is it contributing to the lack of energy at practice, or did it contribute to the lack of energy at practice? It was a question that Brian Callahan was asked, and he answered it. It wasn't a comment that he made, again, unprompted. I just want to put that out there.
And I think this is where some coaches understand how that question is aimed and will make sure they give an answer that doesn't give you a chance to put that down because they don't want to be mistaken for somebody trying to make excuses. And I do think Callahan is still learning that part of it. But remember this too. The very first question this morning had to do with sluggishness, etc. And he did not use the sluggishness as an excuse. He basically came out of the gate and said, I think sometimes if your first few plays don't go well, you say, well, we're kind of sluggish. When you just didn't get it done. If the first 2 plays had gone well, hey, we're off to a great start. So I think he's trying not to use anything as an excuse. Most players and coaches know that portraying that to the media is going to backfire on you every time.
But it's how Estes,
even if it's true.
Yeah, it's true. But it's how Estes phrased the question, which in turn he had to answer it by throwing in, hey, we traveled. This, I'm trying to make it as hard as possible. He has to throw all of it. But then
it's by design. That is the process.
Exactly. Only thing people pick out is, oh, they're whining and they're tired and, they're just a bunch of pampered, pro athletes. It's hard. And what I am finding out more and more each day is that it's hard to try to tell somebody or try to explain to someone that hasn't been a part of it why it's going the way it goes.
Yes, especially when the program hasn't had success.
Exactly. When
they haven't had success. So everybody's questioning everything that you do.
And you can see, y'all see that the Titans, if this was a season and they had to play back-to-back games like this, y'all would be making up the excuse for them. Well, they just played a game Sunday and they got to play one Thursday. Their body's tired. Y'all would make up that excuse. Y'all would give it to them right away, especially if you saw how the team came out. Y'all, they played Sunday. They played a tough game Sunday, and they got to come back Thursday. You know why I say y'all would say that? Because y'all said it before, even in a loss when Vrabel was here. Oh, they played Sunday. They came back. That team was tired. So what's the difference? Why didn't you say they were pampered athletes then? And they stay in 5-star hotels and this and that. That's the part that I get irritated about. Because that's low-hanging fruit. It's easy to throw it out there, and then everybody picks it up, and everybody starts to run with it.
615-737-1025. Your reaction to what Derek had to say. We already have a lot in our text line. We request more. You can call us as well. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Also coming up next, Brian Callahan discussed how Cam Ward has been handling adversity so far in training camp. We'll discuss that as well. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Brian, how have you seen Cam continue to handle, like, when things don't go his way on the field, like whether it was the practice yesterday, the first drive in the preseason game against Tampa? How have you seen him continue to handle that, and I guess how would you like him to respond today?
I think he's handled the adversities of being a young player pretty well. There's always going to be ups and downs. There's going to be days where you perform well. There's going to be periods that are better than others. And you have to learn how to deal with that because that's how the season goes. There's going to be drives in a game that are good. There's going to be drives in a game that you don't get anything out of. And how you come back for the next one, I think, is really important. And he's shown the ability to bounce back and come back and find ways to perform well. I think the Tampa game is a great example of you go 3 and out to start and you come back and you lead a touchdown drive. That's what you hope for. That's what you're looking for from just a response element of it. And he's very prideful. He wants to perform well all the time, and he's learning how to play NFL football. And those moments where it gets hard is where I'm trying to put him in as many of those moments as possible because they're coming. Whether you prepare him now or you let him do it later, they're all coming. And I think he's in a better place, having dealt with all the things he had to deal with over the course of camp, and he's going to continue to get better.
That was Brian Callahan this morning on Cam Ward. By the way, the Titans have officially announced that they have been awarded linebacker Brian Asamoa off waivers from the Minnesota Vikings. The Titans waived linebacker Otis Reese to make room for Asamoa. So long, Otis Reese. Hello, Brian Asamoa.
So that, I believe, is the same position, inside linebacker in the 3-4.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of opportunity, shall we say. I use land of opportunity for the wide receivers, but really it's lot of, yeah, it's really every position group. And so they believe Asamoa maybe coming from the Vikings, who are kind of a stacked defense where he was not playing a lot, right? He didn't start anyway. He had a role. Maybe he could have a bigger role, and he's an upgrade on Reese. But it's also another draft pick, a recent draft pick that the Titans have had that has not turned into anything.
Here's a text from Brian on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com that I want to discuss. He says, a great discussion that you're having and answering many questions about the effort. But one question I still have in regards to effort. Hasn't it been an issue since day one before the travel started this offseason? We were talking about this during the break, guys. Sometimes people conflate effort with talent. The Titans can put forth their best effort and it still won't look good because they're not a good football team. So the Titans can put together maximum effort, and compared to better teams, it still may not look good because the Titans are bereft, what other fancy word you want to use, of talent. So I do think that sometimes people conflate the two, effort and talent.
Yeah, and the Titans are trying to stack talent, which they don't have. The effort, that's up to Callahan and the players to decide how that go. Now, going back to that text, the texter is right from this standpoint because we did talk about early. There just wasn't no energy. Especially, I brought it up because it was the first day of practice. Like, man, usually on the first day of practice, man, it just seems like the energy should be higher. And it wasn't. I said what I had to say and moved on. It seemed like it got better after that. So this team, again, it's not, I don't believe, a lack of effort, because I can't, if I'm not out there talking to each man, I can't tell you whether there's a lack of effort. I can assume by watching film that, oh, he didn't run to the ball, or he didn't do this, or he didn't, stretch out for the catch. I can assume that that's a lack of effort, but until I talk to the guy, I don't know. But again, these guys have two things sort of going against them right now. The other day, let's just say the other day. One, we've already talked about it. This is not a good team from top to bottom. They don't have the talent that they need to consistently compete and win games. I hope they get there. I believe they will. But when you don't have as much talent, sometimes no matter how hard you're going, it may just look a certain way for that day. And the Titans have had their days. Frankly, yesterday was one of them. But then they came back today and did what? It seemed like it was better today. So I get everybody wanting to sort of, pounce on the Titans. I understand that. Listen, you're not winning games. You have to get it straight. But to throw out, I think, the narrative of, a bunch of high-priced, high-paid, sport athletes, they should be able to come out to practice and have a, inspired, energy-filled practice every game. That's really unrealistic. It is. Again, it's hard to tell individuals that because they haven't been through it. You haven't even been through an ounce of what they've been through. So it's hard for you to sort of relate or empathize. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that when you throw stuff out like that, man, it's just like, everything they're going through. It's not overblown. And it wasn't like Callahan overblown them traveling. He just answered a question that was asked of his team about his team. He understands it. Him more than anybody understands because he's putting his team through it. They didn't have to go from Tampa to Atlanta. They didn't have to do that. They could have came back home, rested a couple of days, and then went up there and practiced with Tampa for a day. Atlanta for a day. Well, Tampa now. Which one is Atlanta now? Atlanta
Tampa
for a day.
to Atlanta.
Yeah. Tampa, Atlanta now. And they could have just practiced one day and then played the game. That would have been fine. But that's not what he's trying to put this team through. So if this team hasn't been through this before, what was the stat again? This is the longest preseason sort of like trip.
Teresa Walker of the Associated Press, before the Titans left for Tampa, wrote a story that this is the longest preseason road trip for the Titans since moving to Tennessee.
I would dare, and again, I say this all while saying, and I've said before, like I tell my son, I don't care about everybody in your class. I care about you. But I guarantee you that if you go throughout this league and you watch teams, and if they go to practice against another team and they're there for a while, I guarantee you that first practice is sluggish with the team that's coming in. I guarantee you, especially if they've already played a preseason game, I will guarantee you that first practice they practice with that other team, they are sluggish. I want to see how they come out the next practice. The Titans came out the next practice, which was today, and from what we are reading, they did better than it was yesterday. And I hope that, do they practice tomorrow or they're off tomorrow?
They're off tomorrow. They play on Friday.
So you hope that Friday looks better than it did last Saturday. That's all you can hope.
It's a process.
Yeah.
And that's what Brian Callahan is referring to when he says, I want them to become comfortable being uncomfortable. You go through a process. Some days are going to look better than others, but what you're trying to come out of there with is an identity on a young team that is thin on talent. The vocab word you used, bereft
of talent.
Bereft would be like no talent, right? I guess they have a little bit of talent, but they're very short.
Bereft means deprived of or lacking something.
Yes, they're
They are
lacking.
yes.
They're lacking. So I think that is the important thing here. I don't think I see a collective bad effort. Now, on a team of 85 guys, or however many are in there, you can go through a film session on any team. I don't care if they were 12-5 last year or 5-12, and there will be individuals where you'll look at the film and say, yeah, that guy's dogging it today, right? Every team has got that. But collectively, I think just about every NFL team, to get to the level that they're at, knows that they're working as hard as they can work every day, unless they are getting by completely on talent. And we know that's not the case with the Titans. But you're looking for an identity. You're looking for leaders to emerge. You're hoping to find some diamonds in the rough, especially with the young players, that you can start building around.
Quickly, before we get to Richard Deitch of The Athletic at 4 o'clock, one texter says, the problem I have with the Titans' excuse of being too tired from the road trip is all the other teams go on road trips too. It seems like the loser teams make the excuse. I doubt we hear that from the Eagles, Ravens, etc. The good teams work hard. That's from Dave.
Again,
The
the
Falcons are
question
not
was
on the road.
asked. The question was asked of Brian Callahan, and he answered the question. You don't know what John Harbaugh would say. You don't know what Stefanski would say. Is that
Sirianni.
Sirianni? I said Stefanski. Sirianni. He's
You have the
Cleveland.
Vikings on the brain.
Yeah, Vikings. Yes. You don't know what he would say if his team traveled after playing a preseason game
And how many teams
at
go
night
on?
and then travel and have to practice 2 days later against another team.
I don't know the answer to this. I know that when teams go to Europe, for example, they'll stay there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't play the game, fly back, and then fly back over to Europe again. But how many teams go on week and a half long preseason road trips? I don't know how common that is around the NFL.
Listen, I don't think it's too common. I'm sure teams have done it, but it's the same thing. Why do you think teams, when they're playing out on the West Coast, why do you think teams leave 2 days early? Why do you think teams leave? Majority of the teams leave on a Friday rather than a Saturday, because they understand that time is real and it does something to your body. Okay, that's why when you leave, when these guys go off to your London and stuff like that, they're leaving early. Why? They're not. It's a 7 hour. They're not leaving 2 days before they got to play a game.
A week, right?
They're leaving a week before. And it may even be mandatory that you leave a certain amount of days before the actual game. Why? Because that time change, being on that plane, that takes it. Again, I didn't even think about that.
Now, there is a difference between flying from the United States to Europe versus flying from Nashville to Atlanta,
I
which
know
is
that.
roughly 45 minutes.
I get that, but there are reasons.
But it was Tampa to Atlanta.
Yeah, Tampa to Atlanta.
Oh, I'm
It's
sorry.
more
it
like
might
an
have been
hour
closer.
and
Yeah,
an hour and 10
It might
minutes.
have been closer. Yes,
Fair.
but
Fair
yet,
enough.
But yet and still, there's a reason why people wear certain socks and stuff on planes, because once you get up to that altitude, it does something to your body physically, and then you got to come out of it. Then you got to go play a game or practice. You got to go out there and practice for 2 hours. Until you've been through it, I'm gonna say this, and please, no offense to anybody, because I love you all, but until you've been in it, shut the hell up about it. I'm not being mean to anyone. I'm not, because
You're just sharing your
like everybody.
experience.
I like
You're just sharing your
exactly,
experience.
especially the people that work here and the people that do work here around town. Love them all.
You have a unique
Reporters,
perspective
everybody.
that
Yes.
most of us don't.
Exactly. So my thing is, until you've been in it, at least from that standpoint, like, oh, they should be, and whoever's saying it, maybe you would not want to say that anymore. Until you actually strap on those pads, practice for 2 hours, go in the training room, getting nice and rubbed down, get in the cold tub, hot tub, and then hop on a plane, and then we're going to ask that whoever you are, boy or girl, we don't ask you to go out there to practice a day later. Matter of fact, we're going to give you 2 days. We're going to give you 2 or 3 days to rest and see how you feel.
I prefer shut the hell up. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. Coming up next, Richard Deitch, the Athletics media reporter, will join us. A lot happening in the world of sports media. Of course, the ESPN NFL deal, a huge deal between UFC and Paramount Plus, WWE. Lots of stuff going on in sports media. We will discuss that with Richard Deitch of The Athletic. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5 The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds, only to face disappointment. But I got some good news, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain. with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. How do I know? Because they did one for me, and I'm going to keep on telling you that. And I have dropped the desirable pounds that I was looking to drop. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. It's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Pleased to be joined on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com, by the Athletics media reporter, Richard Deitch. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm good, although I have to be honest with you guys. I may never listen to a sports podcast again. I may never watch the NFL again because I just can't get over the fact that Taylor Swift is appearing on New Heights. I'm gonna boycott everything. In another line of people claiming to boycott X and then never following through. Otherwise, I am excellent, gentlemen. Good to be with you guys.
That's good to know. So, Richard, a lot happening in the world of sports media, which is why we wanted to have you on the program. So let's start with the ESPN NFL deal. When a major trade goes down in any sport, we rush to label winners and losers. So let's do that exercise for this mega deal between ESPN and the NFL. Who are the biggest winners and losers of this deal? And it does not have to be limited to ESPN and the NFL.
No, look at that. You want me to do trade grades, man. All right. Let's put my thinking cap on. Well, certainly the NFL is a major winner, and that's really not surprising because when it comes to financial deals, the NFL almost always wins. They win because they have the leverage when it comes to the most important thing, and that's their content. And in particular, if you want to be specific, game inventory. That's the most valuable content, I would say, right now in the United States. And that's why the NFL can dictate so many terms that they have. So in exchange for what they gave to ESPN, NFL Network, rights to Red Zone Digital, this sort of incorporation between the two bodies, they get 10% stake of ESPN. If you do the valuation on that, I mean, that's massive. I don't know if ESPN is ever going to be sold or spun off, but the whatever that dollar figure is, it's only going to go up. And so the biggest winner is the NFL. I think ESPN is a winner as well. And here's why. The relationship that you have to have if you're an ESPN or a Peacock or a Paramount Plus or Netflix, you have to have a relationship with the NFL, and a significant one, or your business is cooked as we head forward. The NFL is the driver that people ultimately pay for when it comes to parting with their money for stuff. And this deal really, I mean, the NFL and ESPN, obviously, they're longstanding partners. They have a deal, but this really solidifies them as financial partners. And so if nothing else, does it guarantee past 2029 they'll be part of the NFL media ecosystem? No, but I'd have to think it maybe gives them a leg up on Fox and NBC and CBS, Skydance, Paramount. So if you're ESPN, this really, I think, sets your business up into the next decade. You have a significant relationship with your most important content vendor, and you now have, the most important sport in the country when it comes to your direct-to-consumer business, which is what ESPN is now going to launch on August 21st. A little under $30. It's really appealing to people who've never had cable, a lot of young people who, just want the sports that are on ESPN. And the NFL now is a central figure within that proposition. So I would say ESPN is a winner. I would say the NFL is a winner. I don't know if fans are losers per se, because I think if you're a diehard NFL fan, you probably have access to the NFL already. So maybe they're net neutral, a little net positive. And then lastly, and quite frankly, I don't think many people even care as much about this anymore, I would say investigative journalism at ESPN probably long-term is a loser. It's not to say they won't do stuff, because they have some great reporters there, including Dan Van Natta Jr. But when you make a relationship like this, I do wonder, how many resources you're going to really throw to something like concussions or something like that, or things that the NFL really, really does not want examined in the public sphere. I'm not talking about trades. The NFL doesn't care about that. The NFL doesn't care about if a head coach gets fired. That's all you guys know. That's just daily radio fodder. It's the stuff that really can hurt the business long term that they care about. So if I had to say a loser in this long term, it's probably the hardcore investigative journalism at ESPN regarding the stuff the NFL really doesn't want you to know.
Richard, how do you anticipate the NFL will address the fact that it will be in position to directly profit off sports gambling because of its relationship with ESPN, which licenses its name to a sports book?
The NFL and hypocrisy, my man. Oh,
not at all.
You're so quaint. I enjoy it. I don't think the NFL cares one bit. The NFL's in the business of gambling. I mean, I always thought you know how Al Michaels historically would do the cheeky stuff at
right.
At the end of games. Somebody's really happy about this. Folks in the desert are really busy. It is so silly that the NFL will not just be open with this relationship when it comes to sports gambling and themselves. The fact that they don't that they don't actually push the networks to have spreads during game broadcast is absurdly silly to me. They're in the business of this. They have big sponsorships with, as you mentioned, gambling houses already. It's it really truly is a living example of the famous Casablanca scene when, and Sidney Greenstreet gets his winnings from Humphrey Bogart. I mean, it's just silly. It's just not above board. And so I don't think they care. I think we have seen this with basketball, and we'll see what happens with baseball for sure with some of this stuff. I think where the NFL really cares is they care about a player gambling scandal, or a coach gambling scandal. That's when they really care, because, when you examine all these leagues and talk to people who are executives in the league, the one thing that could really, really hurt the league is if the public doesn't believe stuff's on the up and up, right? If they don't believe that player X is trying their hardest, player Y is trying their hardest, or let's say somebody in coaching is manipulating the system. So I think when it comes to sports gambling, that's the kind of scandal that they really care about most. I don't think they care about optics or anything like that. And I just want to say this, just in terms of my own personal opinion. I'm not a morality player here on this. Like, I actually think the fact that this stuff is legal probably gives all these leagues a better opportunity to catch bad actors, because the official books will alert them when there's a really like suspect bet, especially like a suspect prop bet. And so, it was a long-winded way to answer your question. Like, honestly, I don't think the NFL cares. I mean, the NFL is involved in all this stuff. They like to pretend that, they're a little above board, but they're not. They're looking to create as much capital and as much finances as they can. And the gambling industry is a gigantic white whale for them.
Now, Richard, has the NFL sort of found themselves in this sort of rarefied air? Because we talk about some companies in the world where you're just too big to fail. We can't let you fail. And we know who those companies are, whether it's banks or, automotive companies. Has the NFL gotten to that point where they are too big to fail?
First of all, I hope one of those companies in the United States of America, because I got a bleep load of money in the market. So let's make sure like that we don't have defaults.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do the right thing there. Yeah, I would say the NFL is too big to fail. I used to when I was far more active on Twitter, I used to find it hilarious. Like, people would come on and say like, look at the study that in this town, like, there's less kids playing high school football. Kids aren't going to play football. Like, there's always been alarmists when it comes to the NFL, and like somehow like people are going to turn away from it. What on earth have you seen in terms of American culture where people are not obsessive about the National Football League? You can make an argument. It's one of the few things left in American life that's actually communal, where you can get people of different races, different political persuasions, different genders, etc., like, who rally around like something, whether it's watching their favorite team or watching the sport itself. Whatever the revenue is at this point, 25 million, 25 billion, whatever the number is, I should know it, but I don't. Like, it is inconceivable that business somehow could start to decline, because in an era of declining cable subscriptions and viewers, in an era of declining linear television viewers, the NFL has held up on all of this. Like, the numbers continue to remain strong. So they've beaten market forces. The game is as popular as ever. The athletes are better than we've ever seen before. The game is a perfect television game because the inventory is limited, 17 weeks, right? Regular season, it's scarcity. It's a perfect sport to gamble. It's a perfect sport to play fantasy football because you can manage this stuff because it's once a week, as opposed to, let's say, baseball, where you got to manage it every day. So no, I mean, honestly, if I was like betting on the companies or sectors in the United States that have the best possible future, like 20 years from now, like, I would have the NFL probably up there with like things like AI. I don't see anything maybe short of like massive scandal. And this isn't going to happen, where like 100 players in the NFL are like throwing games or something like that. I don't see anything that's going to reduce the American obsession for the sport. So I think you have a really good phrase there. I actually think they are too big to fail, certainly in 2025.
Now, with that being said, do you think, because the show before ours, Big Joe and Chase brought up yesterday, I believe, that he believes one day, because of what's happening with the streaming and all these mergers, that we will be paying for a Super Bowl. Do you think there will be a day where we have to pay single for a Super Bowl to watch it?
No, I haven't been on with Chase in a long time, but I love the fact that he's still being he's like Blade Runner, looking at post-apocalyptic future. Yeah. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
You have to tell me the time frame,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Like, I don't think this is going to happen in the next 20 years, okay?
Mm-hmm.
25 years, no. But if you ask me, like, let's do 2025, okay? If you ask me in 2075, like, would the NFL be on some kind of streamer or some kind of product where you have to subscribe to watch? I would say yes. So to me, it's more about just your time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this is, it's very hard to answer the question perfectly because, you'd have to know what the state of the government is, because I do think Like, I think whatever Congress is at that point, like, I do think government would come in and really make it hard for the National Football League to do this, because I think their constituents would be like, you got to keep this on whatever, quote unquote, over the air airwaves. But I just think everything is heading in that direction. This would be the last thing to go. So if you're talking about a 50-year time frame, this is just a guess of mine. Obviously people who aren't even born yet, like we're talking about, I just think they're going to be born into a world where you're used to like paying for a streaming product. So 2075, my answer would be yes. 2050, I still think my answer is enough.
And that's why I asked before I pass it to Willie, because we have to, like, certain games, if you want to watch during the year, say if I don't have Peacock, I got about Peacock to watch that game. So the
Correct.
NFL knows what they're doing. So eventually, maybe it may be like what you said. It may not be for another 50 years. But I'm not sure if they could dangle that out there long enough to have it where people are not paying for it. Because even if they tack $2 charge to it, I think people are going to buy it.
By the way, keep in mind, you're using the example as the Super Bowl. If you ask me that question about the conference championship, I'm going the under on 25.
Oh, okay.
So it's just the one, that is the one game, because that is the singular biggest cultural event in the United States where my time frame would be longer. But if you ask me NFL conference championships, World Series, NBA Finals, I would say all of them be on a streaming product or some version of a streaming product. The Super Bowl will be, at least in my opinion, the last one to go. I just, again, I think the public is going to get to a point where streaming, where again, we just think of Netflix or we think of Peacock or we think of Amazon Prime in the same way we thought of back in the day, ABC, CBS, NBC. I think it's just going to be part of your discretionary, budget in the same way like you pay for like Wi-Fi. I think that's the direction we're heading. And then obviously all this stuff is going to be about pricing. What a lot of our conversation here about today is all these places have to figure out what the right price is, because they're all afraid of churn. They don't want you to like sign up for a month and then leave. This is why things like UFC is no longer going with a pay-per-view model with Skydance Paramount Plus, because they're like, the thought process is if you love this product, you're willing to stay with us for 12 months for a reduced cost than it would normally cost you to pay for the pay-per-view version.
We're talking to Richard Deitch. He covers sports media for The Athletic. Richard, you came out with Tom Brady's first 3 and probable 4th game for Fox. And I'm curious, you did a lot of reporting last year on his training process to get ready to be thrown right into the top team on Fox. And I think we would all agree he was not a natural. He got better as the season went along. And I'm curious if you had any insights on what he's done to try to get better for this year.
You're like, it's like Pacino. I thought I was done with Brady. I thought it was out. Now you're bringing me back in. Unbelievable. All right. I guess I got to talk about the highest paid sports broadcaster in the United States. Well, I expect him to be better. And the three of you know this. You're better right now, right, than you were a year ago, just because of all the reps you've had in the last year. Willie knows this obviously from doing games. It's the same exact thing. So Brady will just be better, just because like things like a producer in his ear during a game talking, like that he's now going to be used to that. A better cadence for how long you have between plays to discuss things. He's going to be better on that. He just knows the rhythms of the job better. So there's no way he's not going to be better just because of the mechanics of it. The interesting thing with Brady, and again, I don't know if there's a solution to this. The fact that he's an owner or has ownership stake in Las Vegas, I think is always going to hold him back a little bit, because he ultimately like works for a team. He's part of the league. And I don't know how far he could really go in his analysis because of like that inherent conflict. There's a little bit of lack of freedom that he has. So I think he always will have a ceiling. I think he could be good. And I think by the end of the year, he was getting close to whatever like good is, like B-, B. To me right now, Troy Aikman is the best analyst on who's doing NFL games right now, and I find him to be the best. One, he's got great chemistry with Joe Buck, but I find him to be the best because there's a freedom in his analysis. He doesn't care about how the league feels about something, or how even viewers sometimes feel about something. He's sort of speaking his truth to what he sees in front of him. And I don't know if Brady could ever get to that ceiling, but I do think Brady could get to the level of like a solid B. And if you're a solid B, in some ways the games take care of themselves, because he and Kevin Burkhardt will always call an A game for the most part. It might not turn out to be an A game because it's a blowout or something like that, but every week he is going to call games that people care about, at least at kickoff. So as long as he's sitting there like a above average analyst, I think, one, I know Fox will be happy with that, and two, I think in some ways the public will be fine with it. He wasn't an absolute disaster, and in some ways, when I was thinking about him last year, I think that was really the biggest bar he had to clear. He just couldn't be deer in headlights. Like really,
Sidney Brady on the Brady month, right?
Yeah, if you go back really, really old school, like Joe Montana, Emmitt Smith,
he was bad.
It just didn't work. And for Brady, he was comfortable enough where, if nothing else, it worked, where he's not going to freeze up. And in that sense, he cleared the bar. So I expect him to be better, but honestly, I don't ever expect us to talk about him in the same way we might talk about, wow, like, Greg Olson's revolutionary, or Troy Aikman is just like so good at this. Like, I don't see Brady ever hitting that. I'd love him to prove me wrong, though. I think it'd be awesome if he did.
Richard, before we let you go, I am a combat sports fan, so I do want to ask you about the UFC deal. In comes WWE onto ESPN. Out goes UFC. A two-part question for you, Richard. One, how much more mainstream will UFC become as a result of the move to Paramount, especially now that fans will not have to fork over, $80 for the numbered pay-per-view events? And how do you think ESPN will cover UFC after this move? Because I'm thinking of when the NHL left ESPN for NBC 20-ish years ago. If I recall correctly, ESPN effectively stopped covering hockey. So do you see something similar playing out here with UFC and ESPN?
Mario Lemieux, who? That was ESPN back in the day. It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, generally, as a cynic, I always tend to sort of play on the side of, once you're not a part of the ESPN ecosystem financially, ESPN does forget about you. Now, that doesn't mean total absence of coverage, but maybe they have one reporter for ESPN.com, covers the major fights. If it's a massive one, maybe SportsCenter throws somebody on, or that person goes on First Take for blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, I would see a reduction of it. I mean, history tells you that's the case. You saw it with hockey. You've seen it with baseball. So that would be my instinct on ESPN. In terms of like it's a really good question, actually. Do I think UFC becomes more mainstream because it'll have some airings on CBS and it's not on pay-per-view? Probably. Yeah, I think it will grow a little bit. It's not going to be the NBA, college football, NFL, it's not going to reach that, MLB. It's not going to reach that level. But yeah, I think you might have more casual fans check it out now because the access is better. But here would be my only counter to even what I just said now. I don't watch a ton of UFC, but I certainly watch a lot of WWE and AEW in my life. And if you're into that stuff, you're already paying for it, right? Like you have already made the investment to do that. So I don't know how many new fans are going to go to CBS because they refuse to pay the dollar figures prior for the pay-per-views. I think if you're into UFC or you're into combat sports, you're already there. You've already paid that. But I do think, I do think there will be some casuals who check out some stuff, especially if there's a lot of publicity, in the same way, NBC gets a great viewership number for the Kentucky Derby every year. And the reason they get that isn't for the horse racing diehards. It's because they get 9 or 10 million people who kind of just want to check out 2 hours of the race and see people with hats and see people walking around beautiful Kentucky and stuff like that. And I think UFC will benefit a little bit from that. And then the last one, and this is a real caveat, some of it'll be interesting to see what happens with the White House, and how much Trump in particular, who seems to be very tight with Dana White, like how much he or the White House promotes it officially. And there's going to be a fight there, at least that's from everything so far. So that would change the calculus. Like, if nothing else, the president of the United States has a massive publicity arm. And if the president of the United States is talking about like a specific fight or talking about a specific pro league, that will add people watching it just based on the fact that it's coming from the most important office in the United States.
Richard Deitch, the Athletics media reporter, has been our guest on D. Mace, Vingin, and Donick. Richard, great stuff as always. We'll catch up soon.
All right. I'm off to Taylor Swift. See
All
you
right.
guys.
Enjoy. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Mike Sando's quarterback tiers on The Athletic do not reflect well on the AFC South. Is there an opening for Cam Ward and the Titans to take advantage? We'll discuss that coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingin, 1025 The Game. This September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trinetics' Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org. Also, be listening before 5 o'clock. I will give you a cue to call to win a pair of tickets to see Rod Stewart this Thursday night at Ascend Amphitheater. So if you want those tickets to see Rod Stewart on Thursday, tomorrow, be listening for the next 30 minutes and longer, but especially for those tickets for the next 30 minutes. So one of the lists that I look forward to reading every NFL season is Mike Sando's NFL quarterback tiers at The Athletic. And he released his most recent version on Monday. Now, before you ask, Cam Ward is not on this list because rookies are ineligible. So Cam Ward is not listed in Mike Sando's quarterback tier. So before you ask, there's your answer. But I thought it would be interesting to look at where the other quarterbacks in the AFC South rank on this list and ask the question, is there an opening for Cam Ward and the Titans to take advantage? So let's start with the highest ranked quarterback in the AFC South. In tier 2, tied for 9th, CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud received 39 tier 2 votes, just 1 tier 1 vote last season, coming off of his offensive rookie of the year season. He had 12 tier 1 votes. So from 12 down to 1. One defensive coordinator says, quote, everybody wants to downgrade CJ. His number 1 receiver was out. The line did not play great. The run game wasn't there like it should have been. Another voter saw Stroud as a low tier 2. I read an article. They said it's time for him to take the next step. What is the next step? It's time for his team to take the next step. He's pretty damn productive. So let's start with CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, at the moment, clearly the best quarterback in the AFC South. Derek, do you see CJ Stroud bouncing back from what many called a down season last season? Or do you think he settles into that low tier 2 that one voter had him at in this ranking?
Well, yeah, I think last year they suffered because they had injuries across the board, especially at the wide receiver position. I think Tank Dell was down for a portion. Stephon Diggs was gone for the whole season. He played, 2 or 3 games, and after that, he was done for the season. So when you go into the season banking on these guys to be there for at least all, if not 80 and 90% of the games, and that doesn't happen, it will change the sort of the outlook of your offense. Unless somebody else steps up and fills that void. But typically, because at the time, Stephon Diggs was, I believe, he was their number 1 receiver as far as yardage. Now, Nico is their number 1 receiver, but Stephon was really building a connection with CJ Stroud. Then he goes down. Tank Dell goes down. They have offensive line problems. That right there is going to cause a quarterback, no matter who you are, to take a step back. He still led his team to the playoffs. He still had a good season, not better than it was the previous year's rookie year, but he still had a good season. And they believe in what CJ Stroud is doing. But again, there's a question mark because now they don't have Stephon Diggs. I know they drafted another kid to fill that space, but now CJ Stroud got to get used to that guy.
He also has probably the worst offensive line in the NFL protecting him.
Exactly. So this will, starting with CJ Stroud, if this was CJ Stroud in his first year and we saw what he did, I would say, man, that window's not open for anybody to sort of jump over him. But because of what happened last year and not knowing, how it's going to look this year, especially with their offensive line, then yeah, there is a question mark. That's why I said the Titans, are they a good team? I think man to man, no, the depth is not there. The talent, they don't have as much. But because of the other teams in their division still have question marks and question marks at the quarterback position, they have a chance.
CJ Stroud last year was sacked 52 times, and he was 8th in percentage of times sacked. So he does hold the ball, and this goes back to a discussion we had last week, which is are quarterbacks are sacks a quarterback stat or an offensive line stat? And Sean Payton came out publicly recently and said sacks are a quarterback stat. So that's one that I'm curious about, because he is in that classic situation where the line gets blamed for a lot of stuff. I wonder if he can get to a next level with that, because despite he's solidly in tier 2, and maybe that's his floor, and that's still a win for the Texans. If that's the worst he ever plays is how he played last year, he's going to be fine. But he did grade a lot lower. His voting went way down. He had 12 votes for a tier 1 quarterback after 1 year, only had 1 last year. So how does he bounce back? How does he get better? How does the team around him get better? But he certainly looks like the real deal for a guy that's pretty young.
Quickly, in tier 3, next up in the AFC South at number 18, Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is now on his, if I'm not mistaken, 4th coach since entering the NFL. The Jaguars hope that Liam Cohen can unlock Trevor Lawrence. Of course, he has Brian Thomas Jr. He's going to have Travis Hunter playing snaps on the offensive side of the ball. But here was a quote from a defensive coach who faced Lawrence multiple times, including in 2024. I thought this was an interesting quote. He has missed a bunch of schemed up shots downfield. There is nothing that scares you about this kid. How is he beating you unless he happens to hit on some of those deep ones? I don't know how much of that is scheme versus what he does and cannot do. There is nothing elite about him from a big picture standpoint.
It's an overwhelmingly high majority that had him as a tier 3. Like, he's no longer living off being a guy that's got potential.
39 of 50 votes in tier 3.
Yes. And so that says a lot, right? And the first quote is, I thought he would be better. And I think that would encompass what most of us said. When he was the first pick in the draft, I think if you ask people that night, hey, I'm going to tell you in 5 years, he's going to be an overwhelming, everybody's going to have him in tier 3. Somebody would have said, I'll eat my hat, right? We just could not have envisioned him struggling this much. But there's only so much you can say about the coaching changes and the injuries. It does look like he looked like the can't miss that has not been a can't miss.
One former GM said he hasn't proved that he can take the team up a level or make the team play better than they are. I definitely think Liam Cohen can help him if he is able to be helped. Now, Derek, hold that thought. Mm-hmm. We're going to go to break. 615-737-1025. Mike Sando's quarterback tiers do not reflect well on the AFC South. Is there an opening for Cam Ward and the Titans to take advantage? We've mentioned CJ Stroud. We've mentioned Trevor Lawrence. There are 2 other quarterbacks, specifically one in the AFC South.
The most interesting one.
The most interesting one.
We have not discussed yet.
We will do that next. 615-737-1025. Okay, I mentioned Rod Stewart tickets. Here are those Rod Stewart tickets. Be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025. And you will win a pair of tickets to see Rod Stewart tomorrow night at Ascend Amphitheater. Caller number 3 for Rod Stewart tickets tomorrow at Ascend. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
I will not ask David to play Rod Stewart behind me when I talk about Lone Pronto, but it is a good song. Hey, Lone Pronto, if you're maxed out on credit cards or you are bogged down and struggling with high interest debt, pay it off in days with Lone Pronto's Rapid Equity Loan. You can get cash out now from your home's equity without touching your low-rate first mortgage. No appraisals, no waiting, no BS. The Rapid Equity Loan program at Lone Pronto is there for you. Instant approvals, low rates, no hard credit pool up front. So call them right now. Find out how much money you can get, and then you can address your financial issues. Knock out that credit card bill. Pay off that car loan or any other high-interest debt you have. Call right now, 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Get that debt relief now. Loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Forever young, D. Mace and I, even though we're older than Adam.
But you're not as
We're
old.
young at heart.
You're not as old as Rod Stewart.
Definitely not.
I guessed low
Yet.
on him. I guessed 76 the other day. He's 80.
Hey, he's pushing.
Still rocking it.
By the
We
way,
had a lot of people wanting those tickets. When you said caller number 2, those phone lines went
Dude,
boom.
you think I'm sexy.
By the
Come
way,
on, man.
congratulations to
No.
Chad for winning those tickets. So enjoy Rod Stewart tomorrow, Chad. Let's continue our conversation on Mike Sando's quarterback tiers, AFC South edition. So CJ Stroud, the top quarterback in the division, tied for 9th. Trevor Lawrence, 18th. You have to scroll all the way down to number 32 to find Anthony Richardson. By the way, at 30, Daniel Jones. So Anthony Richardson behind Daniel Jones. And man, oh man, do the voters dislike Anthony Richardson. Here is just a sampling.
It's quite harsh.
An executive, an anonymous executive, quote, "I think it is a pipe dream right now, based on what I have seen, to say he is a starter in the NFL. The accuracy is not there. If you want to do college football RPO type stuff, that is your guy. But some of the stuff last year was not starter quality." One defensive coach, quote, "They are not ready to say that they effed up, but they are hedging." One voter, another voter, "The Anthony Richardson experiment is over."
So he was an experiment as the 4th pick in the draft.
Correct.
He was.
And it's over. There's no chance, he's saying. It's over. That is harsh.
Another defensive coordinator said he's a freaky athlete for his size, but he's been hurt every year because of it. Unless he is rearing back and throwing the ball as far as he can, and somebody runs underneath it, he's not accurate and can't make any of those throws. Tell me how you really feel, anonymous NFL people.
But that's why you have to do
Anonymous.
that, is so that they will give you the unfiltered stuff.
Correct.
As you know. But I think this is fascinating because we keep making this point. He is essentially the exact same age as Cam Ward. This is his third year. Trevor Maddich gave us some good insight on this. He gave a very detailed answer when he was on our show yesterday, but he said, D-Mace, that Anthony Richardson probably made a very big mistake of not staying in college and learning some of it because it's the only way you can develop. And it does look like with Bo Nix, hopefully with Cam Ward and some other quarterbacks, that the more games you play on the college level, the more reps you get, especially if you're in an offense that is a building block on some level for what you have facing you as a pro, that you can't develop at the NFL level. And it looks like Anthony Richardson is going to be a big tale of woe unless he dramatically turns it around.
Yeah, he did the right. I'm going to disagree with it. I think he did the right thing by coming out.
Really?
Because his stock was as high as it was going to get. He was ultimately, I think, was going to be probably if he'd have stayed in between Joe Milton and Will Levis as far as talent. I think that's where he would have been either on the bottom end or the top end.
So it was good that he was overrated?
It was good again
from a money standpoint.
Yeah, from a money standpoint, it was good
because he's getting paid the money, I guess.
I don't think he would. If he would have stayed in Florida, they wouldn't have developed him no more than what he is now. I don't think they would have. One, because had he shown that next season, had he stayed and had gotten any better, his butt was on the line. The head coach, he would have made that change to go to another quarterback, to try to get something going because his job was on the line. And again, I've said this and I will continue to say it until somebody proves me different. College coaches are not here to develop you for the NFL. If you get there, great. As a quarterback, if you get there, great. But they are not in the business to develop you. They're in the business of winning. That's why you see some of these offenses the way that they are.
But the alternative is to sit in either be thrown into the fire unsuccessfully, as has been the case in Indianapolis, or sit and watch, not take the starters reps. And right now, the Colts are facing a situation where Shane Steichen's in his third year. He's supposed to be winning by now. He is attached to Anthony Richardson, or the alternative is to play a quarterback that most people think the jury has already made their decision. Daniel Jones is not a great quarterback, right? And we'll get to him in a moment. But he might be the best chance of winning now. So can you imagine being 23, the same age as Cam Ward, who has got this bright future? Hey, he's just starting. But be written off at the same age where Cam Ward is just starting. That is fascinating to me.
I'm telling you what's going to happen. They're going to end up, I truly believe they're going to end up playing Richardson just to lose. Just to lose. They're going to play Richardson just to lose. Because Indianapolis, like a few other teams, they've had this fortune of going from one good quarterback to another. They did it from Peyton to
maybe they reduced some bad luck.
Exactly. They went to
no
luck.
Pun intended.
And then they was trying. I mean, hell, they went out and got Richardson with the 4th pick in the draft. It ain't work after 2 years going on 3. They're going to put themselves in a position again to be able to get the 1st pick in the draft. And they're hoping and praying what? Manning comes out. That's what they're hoping. They're hoping and praying Archie Manning comes out.
But didn't Archie, the grandfather, didn't he already say that Arch will stay?
Hey,
he's going to stay.
Now, yeah, he's saying it now.
Which is what Peyton did. Peyton stayed.
Hold on. Just think, if at the end of the season, say if, Manning has a good season, not a great season, but he has a good season. Texas, they go to the, they're in the playoffs. They may win a game in the playoffs. Okay. They get eliminated. A really solid year. And Indianapolis has the 1st pick in the draft. You don't think that man is not thinking about coming out? It would be.
So he's going to wait and see who has the 1st pick and then decide?
It would be almost like it's a story that needs to be on Hallmark. It's a Hallmark story. Yes, I'm bringing it back.
I would
Willie.
argue that
Yes.
New
I'm bringing it
Orleans.
back.
I would argue that New Orleans would
see.
be
The more of the fairy tale, you're saying.
more of a Hallmark story.
No, but what I'm saying is
Just
that
saying.
what I'm saying is that listen,
No offense, Spencer Rattler.
Richardson, he made the right business decision from a money standpoint. Because I can remember another quarterback, Matt Leinart. Had Matt Leinart come out the year before, he might have been the number 1 pick in the draft. But Matt Leinart said, no, I'm going to stay another year. And he ended up having not a good year. And he ended up falling. He shouldn't even been a first-round pick, honestly, the way he played that prior year. And it showed. Once he got in the NFL, he was trash.
And maybe that's the answer with Richardson, is that maybe he's just not cut out to be an NFL quarterback. And he would not be alone in the long
But
list.
he got paid for it. He got paid
He will
for it.
have the money,
Yeah.
right? Even if he doesn't ever make it. But I am curious, too, at such a young age, if he is thrown to the curb and then has to sort of work his way back up, can he be a late bloomer if he does the right things to learn some of the things he's not good at? Or maybe he's just not accurate, right? If you're not accurate and you can't complete 50% of your passes, I don't care how good of a runner you are, you're not going to win.
Trevor Maddich said yesterday, if I recall correctly, that if you put Anthony Richardson in a barn, he could throw the ball through the wall. You just don't know which wall it would go through.
Right.
And by the way, Anthony Richardson played 24 college games.
Mhm.
Cam Ward played 38 at Washington State and Miami. So 38 excluding Incarnate Word. Jaden Daniels played 55 college games. Bo Nix played 61 college games.
Yeah. And yeah, there are, with the COVID rules, you could literally play 5 full years.
Yeah. But again, this is why I'm not completely out on the Tennessee Titans. If this was the AFC West or any other division, I would say, you know what? They ain't got a chance in Sam Hale. They just don't.
So you think there's an opening for the Titans here, considering the quality of quarterbacks in this division?
Just look at each quarter. The most sound quarterback you have is C.J. Stroud.
Stroud is on another stratosphere compared to the other AFC
Exactly.
quarterbacks.
But he may be dealing with the problem that he has no control over, really, unless you take coach for his word and say, sacks are a quarterback, stat. If you believe that, then okay. But outside of that, his offensive line isn't good, or it wasn't good last year. They're hoping it's better this year.
Well, they lost Laramie Tunsil.
They lost
Shaq. They got rid of Shaq Mason, if I recall correctly. So it was
They
bad
still
last
have
year.
Cam, who was the other tackle? Cam. I forgot Cam.
I'll have to look.
Yeah,
it up.
but anyway, they are in a position, and this is why I am going to say until probably halfway in the season, or how the Titans come out during the season, because of each team has their own question mark at the quarterback position. Now, Houston's question mark isn't that he can't play. It's, man, the people around him, can we protect him?
Right.
Can we keep him up right? If not, he's going to end up getting injured. That's their problem. Jacksonville has a problem because they don't know who Trevor Lawrence is completely.
I feel like it's put up or shut up time for Trevor.
And then for the other
That's what I wanted to get your thoughts on, because you didn't get a chance to do that. Can Lawrence still get there? Or is he who he is right now, a tier 3 guy?
Trevor Lawrence is,
because I've always
think
just
his
assumed
max-
he'll figure out he's going to get there and have that big year.
his max is, to me, and it's bad because he was the first pick in the draft. His max is Kirk Cousins. I love Kirk Cousins, but that's probably what you can expect to get out of him. Kirk Cousins type play, if he does get to that point. Because
so
right
that's
now,
like solid tier 2.
yeah, solid. At times, a solid tier 2, but more than likely, he's really a 3.
A high 3.
A high 3, yes. That's Trevor Lawrence, unless he shows something under Liam Cohen, because you got to understand, he's always had the talent in Jacksonville. Jacksonville has not been devoid of talent. That's one thing they have not been. They had too many first-round picks, number 1 picks to be that, or top 10 picks. And even with all of that talent, either he couldn't stay healthy or he couldn't produce when he needed to. He had one great game. It was a bad game at first, but then he came back because the Chargers, I don't know what they were doing. But he ended up throwing 4 interceptions in the first half and then come back throwing 4 touchdowns in the first half. They end up winning. Second half, they end up winning that game in the playoffs. Outside of that, I don't think Trevor Lawrence has ever at any point reached the expectations that everybody had for him. That's why I said, at best, he's Kirk Cousins. And there's nothing wrong with that. But he hasn't even reached Kirk Cousins' best yet. And that's what Jacksonville is waiting on. And don't be surprised if he doesn't get it done this year. Best believe they will bring in competition for him next year.
615-737-1025. Is there an opening for the Titans based on the quarterback tiers of the AFC South? CJ Stroud is in the top 10. Trevor Lawrence is in the top 20. Anthony Richardson is down near the bottom. Is there an opening for Cam Ward and the Titans to take advantage? We will ask Jonathan Hutton that question coming up next. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow will join us. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Derek Mason here. And if you injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible or, frankly, nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike gear is worth to you and will help you get it all repaired or, better yet, replaced. Law Tigers is the resource the motorcycle community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support you at an event or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. That's Law Tigers, which is powered by Freeman and Fuson, and you can find them in Nashville at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D. Mace Vin Ganadonic 1025 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, joined as we are every Wednesday at 5 o'clock by Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Hello, Hutton. How are you?
What's up, guys? Good to be with you.
Always a pleasure, my friend. So we were just talking about Mike Sando's NFL quarterback tiers that he does every year at The Athletic. We were talking about it from the perspective of the AFC South because Cam Ward is not on the tiers because he's a rookie. But we were looking at the other quarterbacks. CJ Stroud tied for 9th. Trevor Lawrence, 18th. We'll throw Daniel Jones in there, 30th. Most importantly, Anthony Richardson, 32nd. The only quarterbacks that he is better than in these rankings, Anthony Richardson. Spencer Rattler and Kenny Pickett. End of list. Those are the only two.
Wow.
So let's start here. One, do you think there is an opening for Cam Ward and the Titans to take advantage of the fact that other than CJ Stroud, there are big question marks about the other starting quarterbacks in the AFC South? And two, there were some harsh words for Anthony Richardson from anonymous people that Mike Sando spoke to, including one, quote, "They are not ready to say they effed up," meaning the Colts, "but they are hedging." Another said, "The Anthony Richardson experiment is over." Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the locker room's going to tell us that. You know, the locker room told us that after he tapped out last year on that play. You know, it's I would answer the tier question of quarterback, Adam, by asking another question of how would we rank the coaches in the division? Because there's plenty of storylines there too. All young coaches, unproven, and a group of guys who are either known for quarterbacks or known for playing for an organization, playing for defense, and a leader of men like D'Amico Ryan. So I look at Brian Callahan, who's paired with the quarterback. Kaylee, who's the new OC in Houston, he's brought in. Because the young OC, what was his name? Bobby Slowick is no longer there, couldn't cut it. And we've the other two, we're talking about Jacksonville and Indy, they're tied to their quarterbacks as well. The way they phrased that, was it an anonymous source or not, I'm not sure. Said like it's they're already trying to hedge their bets.
Yes.
Well, they can't just ditch Anthony Richardson because they went all in. They stood on the table for him like 2 months before the draft. The Colts put out a video where they're talking about like, man, this guy's just special. They're rewinding all the tape, and it was dated like January. So like they can't just ditch now and act like everything's fine, because they've been in survivor mode, especially up in the front office, for the last 3 or 4 years. And now with new ownership stake there, who knows what the viewpoint might be. I know the patients probably can't get better because it's been great for them so far.
Now, when you're looking at that, because it's been 3 years for Richardson, and it's gotten to a point where he's either been injured or he just hasn't performed. I understand you went all in for him, but we've seen teams go in all in on a quarterback, and after 2-3 years, they're like, we need to go into another direction. I feel that's what Indianapolis is sort of doing with Richardson. They didn't bring Daniel Jones there just to have him as a comfortable backup. They brought him in to push him and ultimately find out if he's going to be their starter or not. And it looks like, even before he got injured, it looks like he's still not their starter. So I'm not sure if they will stick with him after this season. Now, he may still be on the roster, but bringing in another quarterback, I can't see that not happening.
Man, I mean, think about the pressure on the coaches too, Mace, just to get it done in Indy and Tennessee.
Yeah.
With their QB, if they're going to prove it in Indianapolis, the way to do it is through Anthony Richardson. And, some people were saying in that draft, man, he needs 2 years of some time on the bench, 2 redshirt years before he's really going to be the guy that everyone thinks he's developed into. He barely played a lot of football Like he didn't have many starts, period, in high school, college combined. It's the opposite of Cam Ward, of how many times you can actually turn on film and watch him play and progress. So, they're just now starting to see that. And then it was derailed anyway by the injury with the shoulder and, going through what they did last year where it just, he's admitting in post game, they were just tired. Like it just, that cannot happen for a team that's trying to build an identity through the guy. So, it comes down to the coach, whether or not he has trust, because he benched him last year. They bring in Daniel Jones, who's, it's not like you don't placate to a guy like Anthony Richardson right now. That's a kick in the ass for him. It's a different competition this year than it was last year in that quarterback room. When you mentioned it, and I agree that you signed Daniel Jones, it's a true quarterback competition. So the fact that we haven't heard glowing reviews, that's not a great sign. And it's certainly not a good sign when Richardson's getting, can't get rid of the ball and his pinkies pointing the opposite direction. We're sitting here talking about him. He's going to be injured at some point pretty soon anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. Now,
that's just how he is.
Yeah. Eventually, outside of the hand injury he has, you just know that if he comes back, more than likely, some reason he will end up getting hurt again.
That's his game,
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you want a guy like that. I mean, he's built like Cam Newton,
Mm-hmm.
but he plays like a Baker Mayfield going shoulder first into people.
Yeah. He's going to have to learn if he ever does to play this position the way it needs to be played. And maybe he's so far behind that, he doesn't even have a chance to catch up, at least not to be a starting quarterback. Let's say that. Let's get on the Titans. Yesterday's practice was not good, and it was echoed, across these airwaves. Today's practice was a lot better. Is that what when you heard about yesterday's practice, were you expecting for the Titans to come out and have a better practice today?
I mean, yes, but I mean, honestly, Mace, with the way it was described, listening yesterday, it couldn't get much worse. You know what I mean? Like, I was listening to various people that were attending practice. They can only send out 90 seconds of video or audio or whatever it is, but they can speak on it. And the question was like, is there anything that comes to mind? I think it was Nick Suss maybe this morning on the show on with Robbie and Rex Road. Just like, is there anything that comes to mind that's positive? It's like the offensive line, but we really don't know in certain situations what would be a pressure, what wouldn't. When it's down to that, I mean, I commend the offensive line for not being a storyline, but offensively, defensively, whatever. When there's not really anything to point to that's like a shining moment of practice, that's pretty bad. Especially for a younger team that, I just don't. They're either going to get behind the messaging of the coach and the culture that they're trying to build. They went away from the facility and didn't come back to Nashville, not because they felt it would be taxing. I think they wanted to get away as like a team building element to this. That's been the kind of the vibe all off season from Callahan. Whether or not you agree with how he's gone about it or not, that is an aspect of what he's doing. And I think that they're either going to buy in and solidify and gel more behind their quarterback and behind their coach, or they're just kind of going through the motions. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You pointed it out in the first practice that you saw with the energy level, just the, they weren't like loafing or, just kind of cutting up and not trying. But it didn't feel like day one of camp. I think that's the way you described it. And then I went out there and we're standing next to each other. I'm like, man, I know what you mean now. And it's more about the trend of that to me, Mace, than it is one bad, awful practice where, I expect those to happen for a bad football team with a rookie quarterback and subpar NFL depth, like across the board. We saw that last weekend. There's a long way to go here. But you can still rally the troops, so to speak. And, we've already got Jeffrey Simmons and Calvin Ridley chirping that they had a good day at practice. I mean, It's August. And here we go.
Now, which one? Because coming out of this first preseason game, I can say two things were evident in that at least we talked about on this show. And I think other shows on this station talked about it too somewhat. The offensive line, they play really well. In particular, Peter Skoronski.
Yes.
He looks like a different guy. But on the flip side of that, the secondary played awful. So which one you think is true to form? Is it the offensive line and the way they are playing now, or the secondary and the way they're playing?
Well, I think the secondary, because playing true to form, I think it's the secondary, Mace, because the O-line right now, to me, is just meeting expectations that were there that they haven't met. There's a lot of high draft picks on that line.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money on that line. So they're meeting the bar. That's the way I view it right now. This is what it's supposed to be, where if they're just adequate or average, they're not a storyline. You can't tell that they're going to be a bad unit in reps that don't really get after the quarterback. We could see that over the last couple of years, especially at the tackle position. Now, the secondary, this front office, variations of different people that make up this example, we're starting to build this team through the secondary. They spent money on Awuzie and Snead, and those dudes aren't there now a year later. So now you're piecing things together already on that end of it. They don't have a pass rush, and it puts more pressure on the back end of your defense, where in theory you could develop some young talent, get after the quarterback in multiple ways, the way that Denard Wilson wants to run that defense. But you can't do it when you're running out players that would be the second or third corner, not the first and second corner. Does that make sense? Because the guys that they brought in initially, that was the solution for how they're going to defend on the edge and the perimeter, and then get after the quarterback with the group that they have. That to me has really answered the question that you posed. Is that's more true to form because L'Jarius Snead's not out there.
Talking to Jonathan Hutton, and your thoughts on the demeanor of Cam Ward, because he's clearly had ups and downs, and that this was a big line of questioning today, not only to him but to the coach before the practice started, Brian Callahan. And Callahan has stressed that by design, they're trying to make it tough on him, and that he does keep an even keel. He likes how he's handling the adversity. I kind of like what I'm hearing from Ward talking through these things, but tell me your impressions as he's at the podium going through this.
Man, I think that he's just he's born and bred to do this. You know, you can tell that he's had to work for things throughout his upbringing. Clearly, parents that raised him well. You can just tell. You know, you get that vibe through a personality. I'll also say, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if someone, told him you can pick up the leadership role now if you want to, because it's yours. We'll address the team if you need to. He's done that in the past, but he's getting after kind of rallying the troops, so to speak, down in Atlanta. We were bound to see this. I'm not saying it sooner rather than when I thought it would be Willie, but I love he's bought in. He was bought in during the draft process the same way the Titans were bought in with him. The question would be, can he bring players along and elevate their play as he's clearly going to do himself? And the pressure situations, I would hope that every coach would do that with their young quarterback. This is the time to do that, right? Make your mistakes, correct them, and then see if the rookie makes the same mistake twice. He doesn't seem to do that very often, but we're not in those meeting rooms. We're not in the planning sessions. What we do see is exactly what you're pointing out, and rave reviews from me on that. I have nothing but props to give him on everything I've heard since the moment he was drafted.
Now, he did say something today that was a little Diego Pavia-esque, and we're going to hit this in our next segment.
Okay.
Because he
I know where
said,
you're going here.
Right, he said, I think we're going to have a top 10 offense, and something to the effect of, I love my wide receivers. They're one of the best in the league, which is we'll get the reaction that Diego Pavia gets when he told Paul Feinbaum that our goal is to win the national championship, right? There's just a lot of eyebrows raised. So what did you think of that?
I mean, I raised an eyebrow to it. But
I did as well. I raised two.
But at the same time, it's exactly, if I'm a fan of any team, it's exactly what I want my quarterback to say. Even though no one's truly buying it. Like we know what they're trying to build and what they have and don't really have right now. It's Pavia saying they're going to win the national title. People are pulling for him to do that. Vanderbilt needs a quarterback to say that and have that moxie and the bravado that he brings. Cam Ward he's the guy that everyone's looking to provide the culture and energy and identity for this franchise. So if he's not going to say it, there's no one that's going to step to the podium and say anything and speak it into existence. I'm okay with that, even though I'm raising eyebrows going, okay, man, like whatever. Because it's something that I know he wants to reach and obtain, but it's not something that anyone would dare bring up right now. He may feel that way about Calvin Ridley and his relationship with Ridley, and that's about as far as it goes, as far as tops in the league on how well the communication is going.
All right, so here's one thing I just jotted down as you guys were talking about the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Because take Cam Ward out of it, but this is all in the context of what is Cam Ward going to be and the weight that he's carrying as the first pick in the draft. I just looked at the list. Since 2021, there have been 9 quarterbacks, not including Cam Ward, so 10 including Ward, that were used as one of the first 4 picks in the draft. Here they are. You've got 2 that I would say are check marks. Yes, this is working. Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud. Then you've got Trevor Lawrence that I think is in his own category of he's good, but he's certainly underwhelmed. Fair to say?
Yeah.
So that's
absolutely.
That's a check, but not a he's just not much there. You're hoping for more. Then you've got, in my opinion, 3 major question marks. Caleb Williams, major question marks right now, right?
Yes. Yeah. And
Bryce Young, major
absolutely.
question marks right now.
Yes.
Obviously, Anthony Richardson, major question marks and almost in the X category of moving on. And then 2 that teams have moved on, Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, right? So that batting average of the outcomes of the top 4 picks, you look at that and you say, what will Cam Ward be? When you're the first pick in the draft, the expectation's so high, but you can see where all this can go. So the roll of the dice of using a top pick on a quarterback, it just is not as a slam dunk as you would think and hope it's going to be.
Because the coaches don't last. Of this list, Willie, how many of those quarterbacks are on a different coach already?
Oh,
Caleb
almost
Williams,
so many, the majority of them, right?
And is Cam Ward headed on that path?
Well, that's a big question.
So if we know this team is not good,
Williams, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence for sure.
Yes.
Bryce Young, that's 3.
Yep.
Zach Wilson had, Zach Wilson was Zach Wilson. Trey Lance, I imagine, had different coaches. He never got it done anywhere. I left out Drake May, who is, I would say, still in the question mark, but looks good, right?
And on another coach,
already on
a second coach.
Yeah. So you're in a position where you're in the NFL. You're welcome to the NFL moment. Your rookie season, where everything they're trying to confuse you, like Callahan's doing right now with Ward, and then all of a sudden, new leadership comes in. So then the culture changes. The message is different. It's just a different vibe that I think is more of a shock to the system, and it does halt your development some. That does play a factor. And if we're sitting here saying that the team's not going to be good, and this is a development year, they're another draft and free agency period away, like let's clip everything that's being said in the month of August and remember what we're saying in December when Amy Adams Strunk fires Brian Callahan, because he can't do the 3 wins and everything's going to be fine. Like, he has to show that he and his staff develop this roster that's not very good. That is huge for the success rate of the rookie quarterback that everyone's pretty sure has the factors and the makeup of what can be successful. I don't think there's any doubt he's going to be a good quarterback. Can he be great? I don't think necessarily that's the path that a great quarterback goes on. Changing coaches right out of the gate when you're firing the coach that's known for developing QBs. I'm not saying I'm on board with everything Callahan's doing, but for the success of Cam Ward, I think it is crucial that we see this coaching staff click the way that we want to see Cam Ward click with the staff. It's not just on Ward; it's also on the coaches to prove that they're the right crew for the job. If not, we know the owner doesn't have much patience. This isn't Indianapolis.
Jonathan Hutton of Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow has been our guest on D. Mace, Fingan, and Donick. He joins us every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Hutton, great stuff as always, my friend. We'll catch up next week.
Yeah, I can't wait. And I'll be listening to the next segment. I'm curious what you guys have to say about it.
What a teaser that is. Thank you, Hutton.
Yeah, later, guys.
615-737-1025. Okay, Willie mentioned it in a question to Hutton. We're going to talk about it next. Cam Ward said something this morning that has caused quite a stir, at least on social media, which, shocker, right? We will discuss that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, a little change can go a long way, especially when you're trying to save money. And let me tell you about F&M Bank. We love talking about F&M Bank on this show because they sponsor our Take It to the Bank segment every Friday. But F&M Bank has the Smart Swipe Roundup feature on the debit card. So it's time to check that out if you're looking to save some money. F&M's debit card Roundup Smart Swipe feature is a great tool that deposits change in your savings account every time you make a debit card purchase. So think about it. If you have a debit card from F&M and you use it to buy your morning coffee for $5.28, Smart Swipe would round up the purchase to $6 and transfer the difference of 72 cents into your F&M savings account. I am not a math whiz, but that math means you're saving every time you use that card. And you would build that savings every time you use that Smart Swipe feature. Saving money can be hard. F&M Bank can make it easy. So stop by one of their branches or visit them online and find the nearest location at myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com. Member FDIC.
Well, I think we also have the ability to be a top 10 offense. But also it goes on every guy in that huddle, including myself, bringing the right mindset every day. And us also playing together. I think that's the biggest things that we always play together. We never point fingers at each other on both sides of the ball. And we just got to always have that mindset that we can be the best offense in the NFL. And then it really just comes with just us caring about each other on the field, off the field. And I think a lot of that stuff will translate to the game. Just the playmakers that I have in the backfield with me, the running back core, then especially in the receiving core. I think I also have a top 5 receiver core in the NFL, including the young guys who are able to make plays. It's really all about just us or myself putting the ball in their frame of work, letting them make a play. And then it's also those guys being aggressive to make plays for the team. And then the O-line, I don't have to worry about them. That's going to always be the standpoint. Those guys, they bring the energy every day, especially starting with JC. So I'm excited to be behind those guys. Those guys pass protection. They keep me clean. Really, I would say 8 times out of 10. I know I'm going to take a bad sack this year. They're going to give up a sack this year, but we just got to continue to play, good, clean football.
That was Cam Ward this morning. The Titans have the ability to be a top 10 offense in the NFL. I believe he also said that his wide receiver core is a top 5 receiving core, or can be, or will be. I didn't hear that exactly.
Let's just say he showed a lot of confidence.
Yes,
He sure did. He sure did. And when I read that because I wasn't listening to his news conference live. So I read that. Then I sought out the audio and I thought to myself, Cam, no, because we all know that what he is saying, let's be honest, is impossible. The Titans do not have the talent to achieve what Cam Ward thinks they can achieve on offense this coming season. He said he is trying to speak it into existence, which is admirable. And I don't want to label Ward as delusional because that would be too harsh. But I'll be honest, guys, I cringed a little when I heard it. At the same time, I wondered if I was being hypocritical because I have commended Diego Pavia for his self-confidence. So where do you both stand on this?
I think it's good to have confidence in what you're doing. If you don't, then why are you doing it? We had this conversation about Cam Ward, some weeks back when he made this, he was confident that he could play in this game. And the hoopla was, well, why do you feel that way? You haven't played in any game. And my explanation was, hey, listen, when you've prepared as much as he believes he has, the games become just sort of a stamp. That's all a game is. It's just to show you what I've been doing. I'm confident in what I could do out there on the field. Why? Because I practiced it. I've gotten familiar with what we're doing. I'm confident in what I'm doing as a quarterback. So I've gotten myself prepared for this situation. So when it does happen, I'm not nervous. I believe in my preparation. That's what we always talk about. With any elite quarterback, do you believe in the preparation? Do you believe in the hard work that you put in throughout the week? If you do, then you go out there with confidence. If you have a shaky practice or a shaky week, you're going to go into the game feeling like, ooh, we're going to have to pick this up. We ain't have a good week. Cam Ward is coming from a space of the first time he said it was, I'm doing the work. I'm getting better. I know I am. I'm seeing. I'm picking up things quickly in the playbook. So I'm doing all the things that the coaches are asking me to do. So once I get out there on the field, I'm prepared for this. I should be good. I'm going to be good. That's his belief. It needs to be his belief, because what that does is as Diego Pavia has done. We asked Michaela when she was on about.
Michaela Beck.
Yeah, about the energy and what Diego is doing.
And was that contagious?
Exactly. And she said, yes. Vehemently, yes, it is. That's all Cam is.
So don't you think that's the question, is for a rookie to say it in the NFL, is that different than Diego Pavia saying it to college? But
I don't think it is.
I tend to agree that if he really comes across to his teammates as a guy that really does believe, like, how does a veteran take that? Like, do you say, what, this rookie doesn't know anything? Or do they say, hey, look, if he's dumb enough to believe it, I'm right behind him. Like, how does that resonate?
It resonates well with players. It does. That's the guy underneath center. You want that guy to have that attitude. You do. Now he's going to have to start playing up to that, that sort of attitude. He has to play up.
He's got to back it up.
Yeah, he has to back it up. But I want a quarterback, especially one that you sit back and you watch and you say, man, this kid, he has the tools. He can be a good quarterback in this league. And then you see his preparation because you're there with him. And in your mind, you're like, the skill set is there. He prepares like no other. What am I supposed to think as a player? We going out here and we about to do some big things. Now, It can be different once you get on the field, but to have that confidence means I prepared well enough or more than well enough that I believe that once I get out there, we're going to have a good day.
Here's where I love the belief. Can he convey that to his team without feeling the need to go public with something that is going to be cropped? Like Adam said, like we all read it before we heard him say it. When you hear him say it, it's a little bit more normal.
It's digestible when you hear him say it.
Yes, it doesn't sound as brash when he said it, but when you see it in a print, I think there's probably some outsiders that probably laughed and said, what's he thinking? Like that it's impossible. There's no way. Just like they do with Pavia. But at the same time, he says it with conviction and he's like, what do you mean? This is what I believe. But so what's the right answer? Like, is he better off keeping that belief internal, or do you like that he put himself out there in the media when he knows everybody's going to read that?
Let's go to Clay on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Clay, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Good.
Well.
If I could, I wanted to, y'all are talking about, Cam Ward and then also about Diego. So I wanted to ask my man D. Mace, about his comments about, how he thinks Cam is, progressing as far as his development and learning the system and things like that. And then if Willie would comment about how he feels about some of the things that Diego has said, not so much behind closed doors, but in front of the media.
Right.
That's
the question. Yeah.
Thanks, Clay.
Thank you. I don't think Diego has said anything behind closed doors. Everything has been public. What he says about.
I think he wears it on his sleeve. He says everything.
And of course, the difference between Cam Ward and Diego Pavia in this instance is that Pavia, at his level of football, has proven himself. We know about the upset of Alabama. He engineered other upsets before arriving at Vanderbilt. So he has the proverbial, figurative skins on the wall, right? Now, I remember when Diego Pavia, because we played it last week, went on Paul Feinbaum and said, our standard is winning the national championship. And it stopped Paul Feinbaum in his tracks for a second. He's like, I just want to make sure that's what you said, right?
Right. So what he's experiencing now, and there was just a recent one, somebody else's podcast, he was asked about Auburn. Do you think that you've earned Auburn's respect? And he said, no, I don't think so. So now he's going to start getting questions looking for the next Diego Pavia answer by the interviewer. Every interviewer of him is going to say, let me see what I can get him to say now, like on my show, right? And so that becomes a thing. I wonder if he is aware of that because he's doubling and tripling down on it. And after a while, I think it becomes a little bit, you get away from why you do it at the beginning to try to instill belief in your team. There becomes a point where how your team perceives you, how you're being, there's no reason really to make more noise at some point, I think. And I'm curious about how Ward takes that. Because if you say enough crazy things, you're going to become known as the crazy guy.
Crazy Eddie.
Yeah.
This is what I believe. This is what happens with rookie quarterbacks. Not all of them, but I think some of them, because majority of them are A-type individuals, alpha type individuals, and if they believe it, then they're going to say it. But what I have found in this game, the older you get, you say it in different ways. I can listen to Peyton Manning talk about his offense and what he expected from his offense back in the day. I understand Peyton is Peyton. He's a Hall of Famer. I get that. But if he's going out there and he's preparing, I guarantee you when they asked him that question, he might have been more polished than a lot of other quarterbacks coming out. But I guarantee you, I would almost bet just about a lot of things that his answers to questions his first year were different than they were in his third or fourth year. Why? Because he didn't know what he didn't know, but now he knows it after 2 or 3 years. So now he may come at you may come at him with the same question, and he may sort of give you the same answer, but in a different way. It's not so in your face. It's not so brass. But it is telling you, hey, I believe our offense is the best in the NFL. I believe my receiving core. Now, hell, he had one of the best receiving cores in the National Football League and the best offense in the National Football League. But even with that, he said that in so many ways. He didn't flat out come out and say we got the best, but he said it in different ways. Why? Because he learned how to play the media game. He's learned how to play. Not to say he was no more confident than Cam, because I guarantee you his confidence dwarfs Cam's. But when you're a young player, sometimes, especially when you walk into a situation like this, you want to be that guy that sort of sets the standard and you're not afraid of it. You know, some guys wouldn't even say some of the things that Cam has said is about the offense and the receiving core. Why? Because they're scared. They're scared of failure. They don't want to look like as if they fail. Here we go again. Another quarterback talking. He's going to fail. Cam's not scared of that. I'm glad. I'm happy. It's good to see that he's not scared to fail. You know who's like that? Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's the same way. He's not scared to fail. He's going to tell you how he feels. He's not scared to fail. That guy we got underneath center, I don't know how his career is going to go, but I guarantee you one thing, he's not scared to fail.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. How do you feel about Cam Ward saying that the Titans have the ability to be a top 10 offense and a top 5 receiving core? Do you like that display of confidence from the young quarterback, or do you wish he would tone it down? 615-737-1025. We'll take your reaction and wrap up the show next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D. Mace Finn, Gnadonic 1025, The Game, wrapping up the show. After you're done listening to us, Taylor Swift on the New Heights podcast with Jason and Travis Kelce. I was telling the two of you during the break, the phrase break the internet is overused. That podcast is not literally. It's going to come the closest to breaking the internet that the internet has ever been broken.
If you get home and find that the internet is broken, you will know why.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked.
Like Richard Deitch wasn't joking when he was making the Taylor Swift comments.
I would not be shocked if that is the most downloaded podcast in the history of podcasts. That specific episode.
I'm sure.
Not
I
a
think
coincidence.
YouTube's going to slow down. If like just because they're going to start at 7, like YouTube's going to just be slow starting up.
Perhaps.
That is very possible. It's not a coincidence that the Predators on their Twitter and Instagram put out the Taylor Swift wearing the Navy Predators jersey that everybody loves so much, the throwback jersey, when she famously came to some Predators games back in the day. That's why.
So the Predators put her up?
Just on their account, just knowing that this was coming, right?
Yes.
So can you watch it on the Predators?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
No. You got to go to
Only
the
on
Kelce
YouTube
part.
and New Heights podcast.
So they're giving her a little pub.
And as Taylor Swift said in one of the teasers, we all know that if there's one thing that male sports fans want to see in their spaces and on their screens, it's more of her. I'm sure people will love that. But let's go to Mike on our phone line.
Can I get one quick 10-second shout out?
All right, I'm going to time you.
Okay, 10 seconds. Milwaukee Brewers. Sounds, of course, they feed the Brewers. There are a lot of former Sounds on that team. The Brewers have won 12 straight games. They are 6 games better than any team in Major League Baseball. 6 games better, and they have the 20th highest payroll in Major League Baseball. It is unreal.
They're
what
doing
they're
it
doing
on
right
cheap.
now.
They're doing it on cheap.
You owe me a few seconds. That was longer than 10 seconds. Let's go to Mike on our phone
I'll get you
line,
back.
driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, talking Cam Ward's comments about the Titans offense. Mike, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Yep, I'd just like to say that I'm kind of really confident that Cam Ward looks like that if he takes control of his team in the locker house, because he's a first-year rookie, and if he starts leading as a rookie, then we're not going to go to the Super Bowl this year. Let's just forget that. But if next year, let's say we go 7-10, and then the next year we go 10-7 with Cam Ward, now we've got a team. And now we've got a new stadium coming, a roofed stadium that's going to have a Super Bowl someday. What I'm seeing is that I think if Cam Ward is driven right by the right people, take control of the locker room, act like a 4th year, 5th year veteran, even though he's a rookie. And if he does that and he just calms down, he's being pulled apart by millions of dollars and contracts and people that want everything. If he can just say, you know what, guys, give me a season of, say, 7-10 this year, and then next year we go 10-7, we got a quarterback.
Thank you for the call, Mike. Here is some other reaction to our question. One texter says, of course I love it. He qualified it enough. But what else is he supposed to say? Outside of Ridley, these receivers sucked. We're doomed? That wouldn't exactly inspire confidence from his teammates. He's got to get these guys playing for him so they won't second guess going across the middle for him, which in the NFL is pretty much running through a wall for a guy. Craig on our text line says, produce, then talk. So 2 separate opinions there.
Well, I get it. Produce and then talk. I understand that, that standpoint. And I understand the other. He's going to, the unfortunate part about the situation that Cam's in is that he's going to have to learn how to become a leader a lot quicker than probably what should happen, because they don't have enough veteran guys with skins on the walls that have been through things, that can speak on the culture there. The guys that are there, they can't speak on a culture that hasn't been there the last 2 or 3 years. So if Cam, if he is going to take that step, which I think he has the ability to, but it's going to be hard if he has to be the lone guy, if he has to be that guy in his rookie year. He has to be the leader. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I think when you're asking a young guy like that to be the leader, not one of the leaders right now, not find your space within the team and then lead accordingly. No, you're not asking him to do that. You're asking him to be the guy. Why? Because you don't have that guy on your offense. Not even Ridley. Because, I mean, he's been here, it's going on 2 years. He's still trying to figure things out himself as far as the culture of the organization or the history of the organization. All these guys are trying to figure it out themselves. And you got a bunch of new ones. So to me, if Cam has to do that alone, not to say he can't, but if he has to do it, I think it's going to be hard for him. That's why they're going to need guys like Zeitler, Cushenberry, and Calvin Ridley. Those guys are going to have to be the voice. And while they're the voice, Cam has to go out there and produce because he's confident. But what players want to see is, I love your confidence, keep it up, but you got to go on the field and produce. And the minute you start producing, everybody else will follow behind you. They will. They will follow you. They will run through a brick wall for you. If the talent matches what you put out there on the field or the field matches your talent, guys are going to follow you. And you're not going to need as much Cushenberry and Zeitler and Ridley to be the voice or the leaders. It's going to happen for Cam, but he's not in an ideal situation. Let's just put it that way, because I always go back to my experiences. And my experience with a young quarterback named Joe Flacco was, the good part about that is Joe didn't have to walk in and be a day one leader. We had a bunch of them in that locker room. What Joe did was, throughout the season, he found ways to lead. He figured things out. He found his footing. Then after that year, he started to become more of a vocal leader. It was a transformation in a year. Why? Because they didn't put the pressure on him to be the sole leader of a team. I'm not sure if that's what the Titans are asking Cam Ward to do. I'm not there, but if they are, that's a lot to put on one guy's shoulder.
And Willie, I can't find the exact quote, but I do remember in one of the stories that Albert Breer wrote about the Titans' decision to draft Cam Ward for Sports Illustrated, Borgonzi had a quote about culture, and one of the most important aspects of a number one overall pick is being a tone setter when it comes to culture. And that's one thing we heard a lot about Cam Ward, specifically during his one season at Miami. So the Titans drafted Cam Ward in part because they felt that he could be the catalyst for change for culture in their organization.
And I think we've seen enough to say that you can feel what they were evaluating, right? When you hear some of these quotes. And I don't think it's getting the reaction from his teammates of, oh, this guy talks a good game, doesn't back it up. I think they see that he's going through ups and downs and he is struggling. And I think they're aware of where they are in the football universe. They know they're not expected to do much, but I do think he's earning the respect of his teammates. And that is such an important thing, regardless of the one-loss record. The caller was saying 7-10 or something like that. I'm not as worried about that. I want them to come out of the season with an identity and with, ideally with Cam Ward entrenched now as the guy that is changing the culture.
I just want to see the leadership develop. I think the game would develop in him. But I want to see the leadership develop in him as well. And I mean, it's going to be evident. You'll be able to see it if you're looking for it. But I want to see that part, because I think if that part grows, I think it's inevitable that his talent will then take over. I think that's going to take over. But as the season goes on, I want to see how his leadership, I'm going to really be paying attention to that, how his leadership sort of changed from week to week. as the season moves on.
By the way, Willie, Tom in Nashville on your Brewers shout out said, and part of the Brewers winning streak was destroying the Mets.
I watched it. I watched all three. They threw the game tying run out at the plate in the first game, and then they walked him off. It came from 5-0 down in the third game. So yeah, I didn't enjoy that very much, but I am always amazed. The Sounds are so I think Nashville baseball fans are lucky that the Brewers are an organization that really values player development. So you see these players come through every year, and the Brewers feast. They continue to restock their farm system as well as any organization. They have done a tremendous job, especially since they joined with Nashville.
And by the way, the Sounds are underway against the Durham Bulls on 94.9 The Fan. So if you're not listening to Taylor Swift break the internet on the New Heights podcast, you can listen to the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls.
And unfortunately, the Sounds have been stripped of a lot of their players, and they've gone downhill. They're a little bit of a slump right now. But
will y'all be listening? Will y'all be listening to Taylor Swift?
Taylor?
Yeah.
I know my wife is mega excited for it.
Okay, which means you're going to listen to it.
I will probably listen to it.
You'll be aware of some of the commentary.
Do I need to listen to it? Because if we're going to talk about it
tomorrow,
are
we going to be talking about
it? I don't want to be quizzed on it. I'm telling you right now.
I'm sure the juiciest tidbits will be aggregated, so you don't have to listen to the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
I believe it goes live in 5 minutes. But yes, I contend that there are websites that track this sort of thing. I think that this podcast, if there is a record for most downloads or listens in a 24-hour span, this episode is going to break that record. I guarantee it.
I wouldn't doubt it. I'm not sitting here saying I believe it will. There's no way that it will not. If everybody, her fan base is so enormous. It's pathetic. So if her fan base alone listened to it, it's going to break the internet. I don't know how many fans Travis and his brother has. I'm sure they have a lot.
It's an incredibly popular
I'm sure
podcast.
They have a lot, but her fan base alone will break it.
Well, we'll find out together if the internet is broken tomorrow.
So if I can't get on the internet, that means it's broken?
If you have a Wi-Fi outage at your home over the next hour or so, it's probably because of Taylor Swift.
So D-Mace and I, we'll bring our old school scrolls in as a backup. If the internet goes down, we'll have everything written down for the show on paper.
Yeah, you'll have the stones and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well,
the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yes.
We'll find out shortly, but that'll do it for us today. We will be back tomorrow at 3:00. Titans don't practice tomorrow. They are back on the field on Friday in a preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons, but we will talk to you all tomorrow at 3:00.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Wednesday. Peace, and I love you.